With this, I would like to introduce the next speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce Ivan Matejak, who is the Operation Director of ERA. Stefano just mentioned ERA is the European Energy Research Alliance, and he will give an introduction into the European but also global green strategy. And I will put your presentation right now. Here you are. So, thank you. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Miriam, for inviting me. And it's a pleasure to give the overview after Stefano Passerini talk on stories. I will be less technical, and I'm going to talk you about the European and global green strategy. So just to see where we're standing, because we have projects, we have numbers, and we have ideas. But let's see what are the root causes, why we are doing all this we are doing, and what are the future of the European energy system, also the global one. So I'm from European Energy Research Alliance. We are the biggest research alliance in Europe. We are gathering more than 250 universities working on all kinds of technologies for the clean energy transition. Let's see if this goes. Yeah. So just quickly, our mission is to catalyze European energy research for climate neutral, so not anymore carbon neutral, but climate, because one way or another we will still deal with carbon in 2050 with CCS at least by 2050. So, as I say, we have 250 research organizations across European Union and the 5 associate countries, such as Turkey, Iceland, Norway, and Switzerland. And we are divided in 18 joint programs covering materials, soil carbon technologies, and systemic research areas. Just quickly, materials, we have Ampere, advanced materials, nuclear materials, 10 joint programs in low carbon technology, and for example, energy storage is here with Miriam KIT as coordinator. You can see the teach of technology, it's led by researcher people from one of the member organizations that span from Spain up to Denmark and Norway. Still, the technologies and systemic and cross-cutting topics, so which means that we deal also not only strictly with this silo of the technology, so we can talk about smart grids, but also ETS that stands for human social science and humanities in the energy transition. This is a bit about ERA. I know that everybody from here, from the university that are presented here, are members of ERA one way or another. So let's go with the permanent considerations why actually we want to achieve the neutrality by 2050 and also the midterm goals of 2030. First of all, but this is something that we know already, but it's very well that we remember ourselves. So the global surface temperature was 1 degree higher than in 2011-2020 than from 1850 to the beginning of the last century. And the global surface has increased faster since 1917 than in other 50 years period across 2,000 years. So what we did in 50 years, we did much more than everybody did in 2,000 years. The average annual emission during 2010-2019 were higher than any previous decade on record. Global net anthropogenic emissions have been estimated about 12% higher in 2019 than in 2010 and 55% higher than in 1990. So although we are reaching the goals of deployment or investing in renewables, we are still emitting more than we did in the past. So 79% of the emissions come from the sector of energy, industry, transport, and buildings, and the rest from the agriculture. This poses many issues, not just energy related, but also threatening the great part of the planet. And we have 3.3, so it means a half almost of the human population that live in the context that are highly vulnerable to climate change. It's very probable if we continue this way that Europe will face also the northern hemisphere about 400 million climate refugees by 2030-2050, mainly from Africa and more impacted areas. How did we arrive to this point? We arrived, just a second. Well, pursuing energy economic development, which then brought directly to the thirst of the energy, which was huge and constantly permanent. If we see from 1950, the economic boom after the Second World War, up to today, we have five-fold demand for the energy. So this is actually the first cause. And as you can see, how we did that, mainly to the fossil fuels, which is just part of the other renewables. More clearly, it's seen here. So historically, we built and we are still building our economies on the fossil fuels, and you will see in the detail more in the future slides. While the energy transition was extremely slow, you see from the 1950 to 1921, just 50% of renewable in the total energy consumption, and the numbers are not good anyhow. So warming is happening faster than it's anticipated. Just take a look what is happening. It will take a minute actually, but just take a look how the temperature raised from 1880 up to 2021. As you can see, we are traveling quite in moderate way in the beginning of the last century, and you will see immediately after the Second World War how the temperature start to rise in an uncontrollable way. Now we are in the 40, now in the 45, the war started, the huge investments in industry, and now you will see that from the 0 degrees, we have already peaks in the 70s toward 1 degrees, and by the end of this slide, you will see how we are standing. I'm using in this presentation 1.5 degrees as established by the Paris Agreement. Many of them are saying it's still too much idealistic, but this is the only still framework that we have. So look what is happening here. So it's not anymore opinion, but it's quite a trend that we are facing. And in this more 3D way, you can see that from the quite acceptable way in the 1880s, we are up to 1 degrees in 2021. Can we just imagine what will happen in the 2030? So who emits today and who contributed to this result, which is a bit different story. So today we have, I want first to show this one. Asia today emits the most, and we know that because we have China, we have India that needs, and also other countries that needs to know also to catch up with the rest of the world, North America and Europe, just for the 70%. So we'd like to say that Europe is, front runner of the climate, of the energy transition, but even we are going to accomplish the goal of 2030, we are just going to do it for 70%. So what the rest for the other 83. So this is who emits more. But the history tells us different. Before, it was North America and European Union together with Russia that emitted the more in the past. So, it's very difficult to explain people on the left side of this slide that they are not permitted to do that while we have been doing it for 150 years. So why they should then stop doing it, what we have done for really, really 150 years. And we, of course, have some South Africa, Brazil, Australia, but again, the great part is always China and, let's say, the invest economies. You can see it here in the more plastic way. China, after 2000, surpassed United States, European Union. And let's see now the aspects of transition. Stefan already mentioned these numbers. These are a bit different, but with the same goal. So today, you can see here, we have need for this kind of energy in extrajoules, which are still at the global level are coming for 66% from the fossil fuels. The electricity is 28 from renewables. We have some traditional biomass, nuclear, and a modern biomass. Then, to come to the 2050, so to respect a 1.5 degree scenario, first of all, we need to decrease our total consumption, but then also we need to decrease heavily dependence on the fossil fuels. As I said, fossil fuels will still be there for some applications, also for the heavy industry, and maybe also for shipping and air transport, while we'll have electricity to take a part. So as you can see, the share of renewable should grow from the 60% in 2020 to 77%. Now, ARENA has come with 6 technological avenues. I'm sorry, but also here changes, as I change the computer, changes a bit the layout. These are the 6 technology avenues that are being proposed, how to reach and how to decrease the emission. And everybody is from renewables, energy efficiency, electrification, hydrogen, capture and storage, and renewable based on removals from the biomass and the CCS. So this is what Arena is saying. But good. There are also some good news, but as you can see, they're quite unbalanced when you look how globally we stand. The renewables represent 83% of capacity additions in 2022. It's really great news. So we are doing fine. And reaching 40% of installed power globally. But when you go more into detail, you see that just China, European Union, and the United States account for 75% of this installed capacity. So what's happening about the 25? We can ascribe it a bit to Latin America, a bit to Australia, but 85 of renewables energy investments benefited less than 50% of the world's population, and Africa accounted just for 1%. And we know that Africa is going to be also one of the continent of the major development in the years to come. So it's good, but again, unbalanced development and deployment of renewables. So it's maybe all about the money. The scenario 1.5 foresees the investments $5 trillion per year for a total of $150 trillion. So there are a huge amount of money. But what is happening here? The planned scenario, so the pledge taken by the United Nations members, want to invest 103 trillion, so we are short of 50 trillion still, and this is a really huge amount. These are, I don't know, tenfold the budget of Italy per year. And so we need to reach this 1.5, we need to quadruple the remaining 1.5 pathway. Where we can take money from, for example. One of these, as we're saying, it's from the 0.7 trillion, which means 700 billion per year annual investments in fossil fuels. So we still have today 7 billion invested in fossil fuels. Just I put for nota bene here, so we are working on the project. We consider the Horizon Europe one as excellent, which is actually, it's good, it's nice, but it foresees the investments in 7 years, 95 billion. Why billion? Why the annual investments in fossil fuels are 700 billion? So if we continue this way, it's going to be impossible. So, and of course, this needs to be long-term logics because we have the risk of the standard assets in the years to come. Now, fossil still reigns the market. Just, I don't want to be pessimistic here, but we need to understand in which world we are living and what we need to do to move forward. As you can see, we have reached 1.3 trillion in 2022 for the energy transition technologies, which is great. But compared to this one, it's not so, it's not so amusing. You can see that on the 2022, the investments were 943 billions in the fossil fuels, while in the renewables 400 billion. So I'm talking about renewables here, not technologies. So you can see it's still predominant investment from bankers, from the pension funds and so on in the fossil fuels and infrastructure. Now, investments per region, you will say, yeah, Europe is doing great. We are forerunners again in transition, but take a look closer. You have still the fossil fuels, which get invested just in Europe much more than in renewable energy. So this is what we need to think about. To make it even a bit, let's say, less rose this picture are the disparities in capital investments in the world. You can see we have sub-Saharan Africa, which it's just one dot, and just Europe invests 20 times more in the renewables, and in North America, and excluding Mexico, 23 in the 2015 and 57. So sub-Saharan, it's one, Europe 41 and North America 57. This disparity will not lead to the climate neutral society by 2050 if we don't change this thing. Now it's not just investing lots of money, but it's also to think about that condensed time frame from the transition. We have 30 years, I would say even less, require a strategic shift that goes beyond the decarbonization. So we need to create a new energy system by shaping physical policy institutional structures. So you have it here, I will not read. This is also for your consideration. What about Europe? No, we now said that Europe it's investing, it's doing fine, which actually does respect to the rest of the world. But this tells everything. We still today we have as a primary energy mix 70% coming from the fossil fuels. So 70%, nuclear accounts for 10.7%. So you can see renewables just 70.4%. Nearly, as we like to say, the additions to the European Union have been renewable in 2021 and 2022. So we have this nice growth, which is approximately 40% from 2011-2021, but still heavily relying on the fossil fuels. Now, the share of renewables in primary energy production has been continuously growing, but the overall primary production decreased by 8%. So the number, you know, we can play it and we can interpret it as we wish, but these are the numbers. And the energy dependency in 2020 reached 56%, more than 90% for crude and natural gas, one of the highest level of dependency in the last 30 years. And you can see here production for the fuel type from the 2010, 2020, and the dependency rate. So we are really still high dependent, irrespective of the crisis that we have in Ukraine. Now, we have been unreasonably geopolitically dependent from the rest of the world. As you can see, imports from Russia 24.4 in 2020, and now, of course, with the war in Ukraine, it changes. It plumped to the not to zero as was foreseen, but now on the 12%. But you will see now on the gas it's even worse. For example, on the gas imports, we still have 25% depending from Russia. Just to be clear, we have embargo on the gas, but not on LNG, because LNG it's easily you can import it from Russia every day without any problem with Russian flags. So, for example, I live in Brussels. In Zeebrugge, they are the biggest LNG terminals in Europe, and every day the LNG are coming from Russia, you know, and without any problem whatsoever. So these are the numbers. Then 25% for Norway, Algeria, and LNG from other countries such as USA, Qatar, and Nigeria. So we jumped from Russia, which we can say about everything we want, but we ended in the hands of, well, we cannot say the Nigeria and Qatar, you know, it's flourishing democracy and human rights. So this brings to the energy trilemma in terms of shifting priorities. This is the, well, quite known triangle, which was quite balanced till 3 years ago, which energy security, environmental sustainability, energy equity were equally represented. But now European clean energy transition pushes for more environmental sustainability, but the crisis and brings that we should avoid energy disruption. So, you know, again, we have in Germany coal power plants going on, and then we need to avoid social disruption, which means why not to import gas from also again from Russia, not to have major uprising of European society. And of course, we need to keep maintaining climate objectives. This triangle, it's not more balanced. As you can see, it's pushed and it's been pressured by different factors. Now, we have been talking about gas, we have been talking about fossil fuels, but when we talk about technologies, we are going to face new dependencies, which we call critical materials. And these are very important, especially for when we talk about energy storage. So, a European 2020 assessment defines as a list of 30 critical materials, among which we have rare earths. And then they are necessarily for the clean energy transition. As you can see, to reach it for the 2050, we will have 40 times demand for lithium. Rare materials, we have, as you can see, quite a lot, and for nickel 20 times. To reach the net zero, which is a bluish column, so we need to have 40 times, but for the stated existing policy, we need, of course, less. But what we need, if you want to stay below 1.4 degrees, we need to find out where we'll get all these critical materials. So this dependency looks even better on this slide. China controls everything, directly or indirectly. They have either they have mines, either they're processing by owning all the mines in Africa, and for example, lithium in Australia, it's not processed in Australia, but it's exported to China, all of it. So Australia today doesn't have processing of lithium, it's processed in China. So you can imagine if China all of a sudden decided, as have decided for the wafers of the photovoltaics, just to put some administrative barriers and make all the ideas that we have on batteries go to air. So 98% of rare earth are important from China. You can see the dependencies of copper from Chile, nickel Indonesia, cobalt from Democratic Republic of Congo, China and Australia. But the processing, what is important for the technologies, and as you can see, 5 of them are in the hands of China. And this is, something that we need to think about. One dependency from Russia will bring us into dependency to China. Now, what is the political reaction of the European Union beyond the REPowerEU? I will not talk about REPowerEU because all the summer schools are based on that. We know all the numbers, 600 gigawatts of PV, 400 to 500 wind. But what is the political reaction of the Commission to cope with critical materials, and also to respond what is Inflation Reduction Act put in place by the United States, that we can say, it's much more efficient in giving subsidies and money. They don't have to respect rules from Brussels and from single member states. And what is also clear, we have examples of whole industries shifting from Europe to United States to get this 360 billion for the climate measures. So I will stick to the predictable and simplified regulatory environment, which is Net Zero Industry Act, critical raw materials, electricity market design reform. And then, of course, we have skills, faster access to funding, sufficient funding, and so on. When you look at critical raw materials, the main points, these are on the right side. You have the starting points. It says that 63% of the world's cobalt used in batteries come from the Democratic Republic of Congo, while 60% is refined in China. 97% magnesium is sourced from China, 100% of rare earths China, South Africa 71% from platinum, and Turkey provides 98% of supply for borat. Now, European Commission want to limit this, want to rely a bit on what we have on our nice continent. So they have defined main limits to ensure access to a secure and sustainable supply. Then we are highly dependent on imports, often from quasi-monopolistic third country suppliers. We want to avoid that. And to do that, identifies a series of internal and international actions. Of course, it's there, but don't think it's still active. We need to discuss it among 27 member states. 27 parliament needs to agree, and then let's hope in 2 years from now it will be useful to discuss. Now, these internal actions are quite important. We need to extract at least 3% from the continent, or at least what surrounds us, maybe also from the Balkans. We have to process 40% of the annual consumption for processing, at least 50% of the recycling, and no more than 65% from one single country. If you think today, not one country possesses more than 20% of fossil fuel reserves, but there are states that possess 65% of just one thing that we need. So this is a very heavy dependency. So we have to create secure and resilient critical raw materials supply chain, but of course we have investing in research, innovation, and skills. And I have circled, maybe, let's see if this moves. Voila. This is something that the research community should be interested by. So it's mitigate supply risk, working on the raw material stocking, innovation and skills and research, and protecting the environment. Now we have raw critical materials, but also what is very important for storage, we have Net Zero Industry Act. So money comes in now. So it's a significant contribution to decarbonization, and among many technologies, we have also nuclear processes. So nuclear, as you know, it's reliving quite flourishing period. I was attending a nuclear forum 2 weeks ago in Gothenburg, and they are so happy about what is happening that you can just imagine. You know, France is putting 2 billion per year in nuclear. Finland is creating small modular reactors, and they're counting very much on the development. And you can see also the European Union. But only a set of specific technologies, provided that they are subject to 40% domestic production benchmark, you will get financed. And as you can see, you have batteries and storage as one of the technologies. Where the money comes from, nobody knows. If you could ask the Commission, they will now take a bit from the recovery plans, take a bit from the not spend Horizon Europe, maybe issuing bonds, but this is going to be so far impossible. But this is actually a good news, and also for the market deployment. Now, what the research can do here, on this side you can see that we have 2030. The blue one, it's existing technology. So if we do well and if we deploy more, we will be able to somehow to respect the targets 2030. But if you look on the 2050, more than 50%, this is the green area, are the technologies that don't exist yet. So what the research has to do is to know to work on this part and to develop technologies that will allow us to reach the targets 2050. We at ERA, we have elaborated, let's say, this loop. You have knowledge generation, which historically for the research is on the long term. We can say 5 to 10 years, even longer. If you talk, as Stefano said, 86, on the battery. So, we are 50, 40 years talking about that. And a knowledge implementation, which to reach the goals at 2050 should be shorter. So it should be something that also the Commission asks us, but not just the Commission planned it as such. So the research should work in the closed loop with knowledge implementation. But we have new constraints, strategic autonomy, so we cannot go against that. If the Commission decides, to open, and Germany to open carbon pits, it's nothing that can be done. And we have transition pathways integrating sustainable and reliable supply chains, such like photovoltaics. There is a huge demand on onshoring of the PV, for example, and wind to Europe, which is going to be very, very expensive and nowadays impossible, because you see where everything we need come from. And then we have increased importance of SSH, and Manuel will talk more about that. Now, this is the last 2 second slide, and it's very important. So these are this slide here. Well, this figure presents where we heading. These are implemented policies, the net global emissions, and degrees we are going to reach. So if we continue this way, not only that we are going to surpass 2 degrees, but we are going, to 3 and more. And these are implemented policy nowadays. So if you want to do more, we need to start cutting, start investing, to come to the limit warming of 2 degrees and 1.5. So the emissions need to be reduced by at least 43% by 2030 and 60% by 2035. But we saw in the beginning of the slide, this is not happening. We're just consuming and producing and not taking care at all. So we need to, public and private finance flows for the fossil fuel are still greater, as I said. And we need to have substantial reduction in overall fossil fuel use, minimal use of unabated fossil fuels, use CCS where possible, especially in the northern countries because they have developed technology, energy conservation, efficiency. And again, viability and humanity living within planetary boundaries depends on the actions we will take from now to 7 years. Let's say 6 now, because this is what will happen. And this is my last slide. The only let's say, reduction of the CO2 emissions this way in history we had during COVID crisis. So when the COVID started 2019, we saw all the world shutting down, the entire world, the fabrics, the heavy industries, and so on. So that brought us to 5.6 degrees decrease of the emission, and the first time in history. But we need 65% by 2030 and 43% by 2050. So what does it mean? Just to make it, and this is my last statement. So to do that, we would need to reach neutrality, require disruption similar to one COVID crisis year to year. So if we want to arrive to 2050 on this tempo and this dynamic, we should have one COVID that hits us as hit in the 2019, 2020 to shut down everything to reduce these emissions. So do we want that? No, nobody, for sure. It's not interested to do that, but this is what we need to do. So this kind of disruption we should have to allow us to be below 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees to be real luxury in considering the transition. I'm closing my presentation with this. Thank you for your attention, and if you have any question, I'm here.